Hello and welcome into Wednesday morning's edition of the Arizona State Sun Devils Insider Podcast. My name is Kevin Hickson. I am your lead beat writer for the Arizona State Sun Devils on SI and your host of the Insider Podcast. And I'm joined today by Tanner Capolini once again. We are here to discuss the season opening victory for Arizona State men's basketball over Southern Utah, an 81-64 triumph for Bobby Hurley's squad in what is a new era of Sun Devil basketball, a completely new roster outside of one player. And Tanner took care of the social media reaction piece from the game last night. Tanner, how's it going? What did you notice from the game? How fans reacted, and uh, how do you feel about the win?
Hey Kevin, yeah, thanks for having me on. It's exciting to get into basketball season. I know a lot of people were very interested. And overall, yeah, it was a nice start to the game. I think you could tell that there was kind of just a breath of positivity in the air. Also, kind of a bit of shock with how good they looked. I know last season was a bit kind of bumpy and turbulent for this program, so I think a lot of people were pleasantly surprised how good Coach Hurley's squad looked. And I think one thing that really stood out was just kind of the teamwork aspect. Teamwork makes the dream work, and that came true this game. You had four players who had double digit scoring. It really felt like a game that ASU should have won. They did, but I thought what really was impressive and what fans really noticed was the just kind of how everyone contributed, and I feel like that's something that was just really special. You had that one kind of series where the ball didn't touch the ground for ASU on offense. They were able to move it down the court in a pretty efficient manner. So definitely a lot of positives, but yeah, kind of what stood out with the fans and the social media was just kind of everyone working together to get the win.
Yeah, that was a great point, the good vibes statement you made, because after the game, uh, there's some stuff that's public and some stuff that's not known about last year's team. There is ultimately a lot of drama, and that probably uh, is a sign as to why so many people departed the program from year to year. Anthony Pig Johnson spoke to us after the game, and he said we all like each other. There's no drama whatsoever, and that's just great to hear. That the vibes are good because that's half the battle. You can have all the talent in the world that you could possibly want, and it just doesn't click because there's like battles for minutes between players that become toxic. There's a bunch of different factors that can go into that. And it feels like these guys just are really there to play basketball and work together. And that's just half the battle, like I said. As for the offense, yeah, I fully agree with you. The offense, a lot of Hurley's offenses have been critiqued because they are too stagnant. There's too much ISO ball. Uh, there's not enough player movement. This year's team looks like they're going to be the exact opposite. There's ball movement galore. Guys are cutting towards the basket. There's great timing. They're uh, making the extra pass. They're sacrificing their stats for the right basketball play. And that's a breath of fresh air. Uh, I felt like every single possession, not every, but most possessions they had, there was a lot of intention behind it. Um, and I really like the sets that they ran as well. Uh, they did a lot of work to get Masamba Diop the ball in the low block, and he had a great game. We're going to talk about him in a couple minutes. I believe he was a team high plus 27 when he was on the floor. Uh, really had a great game and what is a big pair of shoes to fill for Jaden Quaintance Quaintance is now off to Kentucky. Um, yeah, that's really the main things I had to say as to what I really liked from the team. Tanner, do you have anything else to add on to that?
Yeah, you mentioned a bit of Anthony Peg Johnson. He was just really good early in this game for the ASU offense. I felt like the fact that he came off the bench and was as efficient as he was really just speaks to how much of a team this is going to be. I do have a piece coming out on ASU on SI about this one player, so I don't want to go spoiling that article too much, but I thought Maurice Odom had a really, really nice game. I think there's a lot to like about the way he looked, just physically, mentally, the fact that he was able to pass while being kind of a big man, if you will, just the fact that he was physically dominant and just had high IQ is an awesome combination. And a lot of fans, I know, were really excited by him. He was kind of the player that was kind of sticking out the most. You could tell with the reactions, and it's gonna be exciting to see how he does. He's had some good success before in college. This is his third college. Every year he's gotten better, so he could be, I think, a superstar level player. I don't want to overreact too much, but yeah, he really stood out. I thought, in terms of players, he was the one that was really fascinating to watch, and just seeing some of the highlights with him and just the way he can move and pass and just, I don't know, it was just really awesome to see. So that was kind of the highlight.
Yeah, that's bringing up Mo Odom's a great point. Uh, he didn't have his best game as a scorer. He did make 3 of 5 3-point attempts, and his jump in 3-point efficiency has been something that's probably been the biggest development of his game over the years. Uh, he shot 3 for 8 total, so he missed all 3 of his 2-point attempts, but that was fine by me, honestly. Like you said, just seeing the work he does orchestrating the offense. He's definitely going to be the lead guard when it comes to initiating plays, when it comes to feeding the ball down low to guys like Toure and Masamba. Um, he's he's just one, like, it's interesting to talk about because Coach Hurley was asked about this in his press conference last week ahead of the season, and he kind of said that Mo is reminds him a little bit of former ASU star Trey Holder. He said Trey Holder's probably a better scorer overall, but he probably has the better end of the playmaking stick. And I thought that that was a really good comparison because Trey really represented the shift from kind of a meddling program that ASU was in the early 2010s after James Harden left. He kind of was the bridge between that and the promise that was shown early in Bobby Hurley's tenure. And I kind of feel like Mo Odom could be that same guy that provides that spark in year 11 of Bobby Hurley. And obviously, Hurley's coaching for his job right now because if he doesn't reach what is expected of him this year, they're not going to extend him. So I really do like that comparison and the bridge there. Um, yeah, that's really what I had to say. Great point, Tanner.
Yeah, and I think one thing too, I'll kind of mention as we somewhat transition to the negative, somewhat, um, is that I feel like fans are still kind of hesitancy, I think is the right word with this program because, like you said, Coach Hurley, this is his 11th season. So he's been here a while, and it hasn't been, the most successful all the time. So I think fans were kind of like, cool, this team won, but is this for real, right? This was a team in Southern Utah that they should have won. They did, and it was like, okay, so I think fans were, there's kind of that bit of, okay, is this kind of the right coach? Is this going to be the right future? I do think, like you said, a lot of stuff of the ball movement, that's good to see. It's just, can they continue it? Hopefully, this is consistency, and we see more games like this, and it's just not some, one game sample size. So it's going to be interesting to see how that all pans out. But I think there's definitely some kind of hesitancy of just how much to celebrate, knowing kind of the history of this program.
Yeah, that's a great point, Tanner. The the Hurley debate is really interesting. That's something that we can get to another time. But this is a segue, I guess, into talking about points of improvement that we um, can really stress about this team. And I think the most obvious one was the turnovers. And I know turnover, schmurnover, it's the adage is old as time. We need to limit our turnovers. That's what Coach Hurley said after the game. But it's like it's something that's obvious. 14 turnovers against Southern Utah. Yeah, you can get away with it just because you're the better team. But when you play Gonzaga a week from now, you're not going to be able to get away with having that many turnovers. And a lot of them were plays that could have been made. They just weren't executed right. Like a couple of lobs that just didn't have enough air underneath them and whatnot. But still, they Hurley brought up how well they managed the Texas A&M scrimmage, and A&M full court pressed them the entire game. And I believe they only had 8 turnovers in that game, the entire scrimmage. So to see them almost double that up against Southern Utah, that's not the best sign, but I feel like we can excuse that a little bit because the offense as a whole clicked for the most part, and it's easy to see them continuing that moving forward.
Yeah, that is a good point. I do want to ask you, Kevin, because you were at the game in person. What caused the majority of the turnovers in your eyes? Was it miscommunication, maybe getting a bit too greedy? Like, what was kind of the main cause, or maybe one or two for the reason of the turnovers?
Um, I think there was a couple of turnovers that were driven by just not being on the same page at the same time. Just a little, just a little bit off timing, not anything very substantial. Like I said, there was a couple of lobs that were the right idea was there, the right read was there. It just there just wasn't enough air put under the ball, and Southern Utah was able to intercept the ball before it got to. I believe one of them was a lob to Masamba Diop, and it would have been an easy finish, but there just wasn't enough air put underneath it. Um, and I think a couple of them were just careless plays, just not seeing the help side defender there, like when they were making the skip pass or whatever. And yeah, I'd say it was mostly just lapses more than anything else. I don't think it was anything structurally wrong with the team because I mean, I think we all saw how well the offense flowed for the most part. So I think that a lot of them were just, yeah, unforced errors.
Yeah, that makes sense because these are a lot of new players coming, together. So that does make sense. In terms of that, hopefully, can just kind of get the communication down. I think for me, one thing that could have been better was I thought that uh, the defense in the second half was a bit more lax. I felt like early on they were playing really good. ASU was able to build up a big lead, and then I don't know the words coasting in the second half, but I felt like that Southern Utah was able to get a couple things going, and ASU was able to win, which is great. But like you've kind of mentioned, against a tougher competition, you would like to see the second half team be a bit better, a bit more stable, and kind of more fluid, and maybe a bit more aggressive. Not too much, but yeah, that was one thing I noticed that the second half, I think they kind of maybe could have put the foot on the gas a bit more.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think the like unforced errors is probably the number one thing to look at in terms of points of improvement. I'm sure that they will get better as the games progress, as the season progresses. Um, I also there were moments that they really had lapsed uh, attention defensively. I'd overall give probably a B minus for them as it for a defensive performance. I mean Southern Utah shot 37%. They only made four threes. They committed 16 turnovers. They committed more turnovers, but one thing that really gave them life during the game was that they had 16 offensive boards. And ASU is a pretty big team. True is almost 7 feet tall. Misamba is about 7 feet tall. They have a lot of guys that Alan Mukeba is 6'8", but he's very, very strong and built up Um, the fact that they gave up that many offensive rebounds and gave Southern Utah life due to that, that's something that has to be cleaned up. Whether it's emphasizing team rebounding, boxing out, all that stuff. Like it's pretty basic stuff. But you're not going to, like I said, you're not going to be able to get away with that against Gonzaga. If Gonzaga gets 16 offensive boards on you, they're going to burn you, as they average 80 points a game pretty much every single season. Um, that's one thing. And then I also wanted to close out saying that I was a little disappointed by Marcus Adams Jr., his performance. Um, I don't think he played bad per se. I mean, he was a -10, which was he was only one of two players that were a minus on the team, and he was the only player that got significant playing time that didn't score. I did see some things I liked out of him. He actually did rebound the ball pretty well. He came up with some timely boards. He was involved in moving the ball around, but he did have two turnovers. He only took one shot. I understand that he's coming back from injury, and there's probably going to be an adjustment period, but he was a player that I had really high hopes on going into the season. He's a former four-star recruit. He played at Kansas. Um, he averaged 16 points a game, shot 40% from three last year. So I hope that we get the best out of Marcus Adams this season, but it looks like it's going to take a little bit of time to get there.
Yeah, I think kind of that's a good segue to kind of my point. Is that this game reminded me a lot of kind of ASU's football first game where they beat a team they should have. It was a convincing win. But I remember after the ASU football game, the one thing was penalties cost that team and kind of some simple mistakes. And with basketball, not penalties, it wasn't the case, but kind of some of those mistakes. And we see that still somewhat affecting ASU football. So I hope for men's basketball that they're able to kind of fix that and these are not reoccurring issues. I think that's just going to be the main thing to see. I think overall is a very nice win. I think just to have the win that they should have. But like you said, there are definitely players and definitely things that they need to fix. It'll be just hopefully they can get it fixed as the season goes on. Hopefully this is a matter of okay, adjustments over time, time fixes all. They're kind of gonna bond together. But I think if we're here in a couple of games and there's still issues, then it's time to hit the panic button. But I think for now it's enjoying the victory.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of the mindset that Coach Hurley had after the game. He was like, "Yeah, we had to have that win." Talked to the guys that last season didn't go according to plan. It's been a while since we've won a game, so we really needed that one. But we also need to stay honest and focus on things that we need to improve as the season goes on. That I really think that a lot of the teams carrying that underdog mindset, the motivation of being picked to finish last in the Big 12, they're really using that as fuel to fight for a season in which they actually shock the world. And we've seen that before with Arizona State football. Last season, they were picked to finish last in the Big 12. They end up winning the Big 12. I'm not saying that Arizona State basketball is going to win the Big 12 this season, and that's very unlikely because the Big 12 is just absolutely loaded. But could they get a little bit of mojo in non-conference and actually carry it into conference play this season and muster enough wins to at least be playing for something in March? Uh, Still a long ways away from that, but I ultimately liked what I saw more than stuff I didn't like. And I can see a world in which this team gets better and better as the season goes on. The European players get more comfortable. They get guys like Noah Miusin back. Um, yeah, I think it was a great start to the season, and Arizona State looks to carry it into game two of the season against Utah Tech on Sunday afternoon. That's going to be a great game, but the Gonzaga game is the one that everybody has circled on their calendars. That is next Friday, the night before Arizona State and West Virginia playing football. So that's going to be a very, very exciting homecoming weekend for Arizona State. Uh, and Tanner, do you have any last thoughts before we conclude today's episode?
I think it was just nice to kind of, I think, kick off the season in the right way. I think it's ASU won, they should have, but it was also nice that they did. There's a lot of times in sports where teams should win and they don't. So I think the fact that they got it is impressive. It was nice to have, I think, just kind of more of a clean win, quote unquote, in terms of like kind of drama free, kind of just getting in there, getting it done. Yes, there's stuff to clean up game wise, but it was a game that I think kind of went according to plan, if you will, and I think that's a good start. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to monitor during the season. It's just exciting too to have basketball back, to have basketball and football going. Like you mentioned, next weekend's going to be an exciting time for ASU with the Gonzaga game. You got West Virginia for football. That's going to be a really exciting time, and hopefully the ASU sports can show up well.
All right, Tanner. Thank you for that closing statement. That was very well put. Thank you for joining me once again to discuss Arizona State's season opening win over Southern Utah. And uh, there's a possibility that we might have a bye week episode for the football team coming up. We'll see how that goes. But until then, thank you for tuning in today. And we will see you with a new episode for Friday tomorrow.